So this is the example case for our WebGIFT model, and what I'm showing here is the website you get to when you type in webgift.rit.edu. We'll take you to this opening page and you can click enter, and what you'll see is we load up a map, the United States in the center, and on the left side is a bunch of tools that I'll get to related to how to evaluate different routes. The top items up here allow you to log in so you can save results to a database, to register your name for updates, to manage vehicles, and we won't spend much time in this tutorial talking about those. So the way we start with WebGIFT, let's consider a problem where we want to move some containers from Miami, Florida to Boston, Massachusetts, and we are interested in evaluating some of the trade-offs between trying to get the freight from the origin to the destination as quickly as possible versus trying to move the freight at the lowest carbon emission values as possible. So on the left hand side we see we can select a starting location, and there's several ways to do this. You can just click on a map, choose a facility or find an address. I'm going to choose a facility here, and there's a nice convenient drop down that includes every one of the terminals identified in the NTAD database, and I'm just going to scroll down and find something in the Miami port area here. Well, let's go down to just pick the Port of Miami. Is probably the easiest right here. And once I click that, I'll click add location, and you'll notice the origin shows up on my map. I can always zoom in, so I'm just clicking on the plus sign, and as I get closer on the zoom, you'll begin to see some of the networks develop. So the blue lines represent some waterway networks. There's some other facilities. Here we see some of the railroad networks showing up, and of course the road networks. So I'll zoom back out, but you can always zoom in if you like. Now for a destination, I'll also choose a facility, and well, I'll go back down to the ports here, and maybe we'll pick Boston. I said we'll go port to port, so I'll pick the Port of Boston and I'll add that location, and so that shows up. Now item 3 on the left is to select our vehicles. We use the term vehicles loosely, meaning both truck, train, or vessel, and there's a couple different options. So I may be evaluating a case where I know precisely what kind of truck I have and what the emissions factors are, or what kind of vessel I have and the emissions factors, and I can always put those emissions factors in directly. We'll cover that in a later tutorial. Right now I just want to show you how to select a truck, a train, and a vessel from our existing databases. So I'm going to click on that check mark, and you'll see a database of different kinds of trucks that we have. Now for this case, I'll just pick a model year, a more recent truck, combination vehicle, a model year 2010 or above, and you can see what some of the emissions factors are, and we generate these in terms of TEU per mile. And there's a nice description here that explains that we're assuming that there's 2 TEU containers and where some of the data are from. I'll now put add selected truck. You'll see down here it says add custom truck, so again that gets to an option where I can actually put in emissions factors that I'm aware of. But I'll just add this selected truck, and you'll see it shows up on the left here under truck. I'm going to select a train because train is another option that the model may consider, and I think I'll pick an EPA Tier 2 train, and again this generates emissions factors in terms of grams per TEU mile. These emissions factors, by the way, are generated through an emissions calculator that we had built for the Maritime Administration to help not only with this WebGIFT model, but also with just general calculations that one may have to compare emissions from different modes of transport. So I'm going to add a selected train, and that shows up under my train line, and now I'm going to add a vessel. Again, you can go through the examples here. I think I'll just pick this Army Corps of Engineer 1000. This is a 1,000 TEU vessel. It's from an operating database that we have of different vessels, and again you can see the emissions factors here, and I'm going to add selected vessel. Okay, so now I have my vessels, my vehicles selected. 1, 2, and 3 you'll see turn green. There's one more thing to do, and that's the route optimization factor. So in many other programs that do route optimization, time or distance are the key parameters that are used in the optimization evaluation. And so we typically ask questions like, I want to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible. What's the highway route I take? Well, in the WebGIFT model, you have more options than that. Using the different factors in the databases that we've put together, we can optimize these routes based on distance, carbon dioxide, nitrogen oxides, hours, that's time transport, particulate matter, and SOx. And so we can do these evaluations and compare different routes and the optimal routes for these criteria. So for example, if I wanted to explore the difference between the quickest route, I would click hours, versus the least carbon route, I'll pick CO2. I could click both of those and tell the computer to solve the route. So right now you'll see the model is working. Now this model is running on servers at the Rochester Institute of Technology with mirror servers at the University of Delaware. And for a complicated route, this analysis could take anywhere from half a minute to a minute or so. It's a little bit longer than some of the other kind of commercial packages that are out there, but that's because it's doing a lot of calculations related to emissions in this case and time that some of those other packages don't do. Some of the uses of this, and here you see our results showing up, some of the uses of this is to do some trade-off evaluations. So you'll see that 2 routes have been identified as optimal routes, one for hours and one for CO2. Now the hours is in green, and on the left you'll see that we can either show that or not. Okay, and the CO2 is in blue, and we can show that or not. And the window that we get here gives you more details about the total route. So this is for our CO2 results. It tells us the travel time, the distance by mode for ship, road, and rail. And so for this least CO2 route, there's a little bit of rail, but it's mostly been put on a ship up the coast following the waterway network that we have. Also shows how much energy and emissions of some different pollutants per TEU shipped. Okay. Now if I select hours, that box will change. You'll notice the route of hours is now highlighted more in bold, and it'll give me my travel time, distance, and of course this is mostly, in fact this is all highway and roadway miles, and it tells us our emissions. So I can do some comparisons now. Looking at the least time route, I see this route is 24 hours, 25 hours, and 44 minutes. So about 26 hours is my least time route. My least carbon route is 72 hours, well, and 52 minutes, about 73 hours. So 25, 26 hours versus 73 hours, that's my difference in time. The carbon emissions under my least time route is down here at the very bottom, 1,290 kilograms per TEU shipped For CO2, it's only 370 kilograms per TEU shipped. So you can now see the value of this. I can reduce my emissions of carbon by taking a ship up the coast by about 900 kilograms per TEU. However, it's going to take me about 3 times as long for it to get there. And so that's a really helpful information to have for an analyst. We also have really detailed directions, both in terms of the ship transport in that case and the road transport, so one can look at directions. And I'm going to click on modes, which allows you to break down some of these routes by the specific modes, and we can do that in a later tutorial. And I'll just show quickly this compare tool, which allows us to also, if I click down here at the bottom left, compare, allows us to generate a table that has all these data for the 2 different routes, the one for hours and the one for CO2, and these are exportable to an Excel file, so you can export them and do some of your own analysis on them. So that's just one example of the use of WebGIFT to help us understand some of the trade-offs between shipping using different modes.